All right. Welcome back to the Roundtable Dolphins podcast. This is episode number 33. Again, people, if you like what you hear, please do all these social media things. Share this video, like it, comment, subscribe to the channel, do all the things. In the description of this video will be the official Roundtable Dolphins site. It is free to create an account. There will be more articles, analysis, and all kinds of deep dives and stuff going on, especially now that football is back. There will be a lot of analysis on the games, which is what we're going to do right now. The Dolphins had their first preseason game against the Washington Commanders. And even though the score was 20-7, they don't really matter. The whole point of preseason football is to kind of see where your roster is, where the holes may be, and all that good stuff. For the Dolphins, there are a whole hell of a lot of holes in the back end there. Depth is really, really a big concern here. But before we get into that, we can just jump right into what we liked, what we saw, who stood out, all those good things. Granted, the Washington Commanders did not play any of their starters, or most of their starters did not play. So take that as you will. But for the Dolphins, their starters did definitely play. They played a few minutes, one series, if you will. Certain players stayed out there, others did not. But they looked good. Malik Willis moved the ball very, very well. He was, a lot more surprising than I thought he was going to be. We went 4 for 5, 43 yards. And he also rushed 2 times for 9 yards. He was reading the coverage well. He took off with his legs, picked up almost a first down, slid a little early, and ended up being like 3rd and 1 or whatever it was. But regardless, he looked good. He looked poised in the pocket. The offensive line looked good. Devon Achane returned to what he was before. 7 carries, 39 yards, 1 touchdown, 5.6 yards per carry. But I think one of the biggest, obviously, around the NFL, one of the biggest players that everyone recognized was Caleb Douglas, who should have had 2 big catches, one of which he stepped out of bounds on accident. The second was a highlight reel, one-handed grab, left up in the air, caught it with one hand, came down with it, and everybody was talking about it. It was all over the NFL socials, all over the Dolphins socials. Huge, huge, huge catch. But more than that, so Malik Willis, Caleb Douglas, those are 2 of my top performers for obvious reasons. And the other one that people may not have noticed as much, we talked about him plenty leading up to the first preseason game, but Jonah Savaiinaea did really, really well. He was one of the highest rated players on the team, top 5. He was opening run lanes. He was doing what he needed to do, and he even got a shout out from head coach Jeff Hafley. So the move to the right was clearly the right thing that he needed, or whatever his growth was from year 1 to year 2. He was one of the worst rated guards in 2025. Now playing very, very well. He was impressing OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and now preseason. Again, the starters were not out there for the Commanders, so take that as you will. Obviously, everyone's going to be like, oh, starters, but it is what it is. Regardless, the Dolphins looked good starters-wise.
Yeah, I think that first series was good, and it proved my theory right of that, like just churning the clock down. I think that first drive was like 7-8 minutes long, and that looked great. I mean, Devon Achane's back, still got it, still plowing down the field. But I was also really impressed by Ollie Gordon, who kind of had the same yards per carry as Achane. I thought that was, we've spoken about him and what he could be this season. So that shows like they've got, a really good, strong run game. Other than that, though, the secondary, there's problems back there. And also the quarterback situation is not positive after that game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There was some to like, and I say some to like because unfortunately the starters were not there for too long, but of course you don't want that in a preseason game. And there wasn't a lot to like as well, but the players who did stand out, Malik Willis, of course, looked sharp, he looked crisp, he looked comfortable out there. Granted, it wasn't against the starters, but he looked to like how you kind of wanted him to look, kind of being an unproven guy, but signing a big contract. So at least first glance, he looked well. Caleb Douglas as well. He showed flashes of what he can be. in this offense, which is exciting to see. Yeah, James is like that play where he had that incompletion. I think that's just has more to do so with the college field is just a tiny bit bigger. The hash marks in college are a little closer in, and in the NFL they're a little wider out. So
that much of his foot was on the line. But I mean, that's
why you wear white cleats.
I mean, but that just shows, that was his skill. Like it was like a weird, like behind the shoulder kind of weird catch, and he still came down with it. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, better than dropping it. And then one guy who you guys didn't mention, who I'm gonna mention, even though he also didn't play a lot, but I feel like he's gonna play a big part, is Jacob Rodriguez. He only played 13 snaps, but he finished with a tackle and a pressure. Like I said, didn't play a lot, but you don't want him to play a lot because he's going to be not the focal point of the defense, but he's going to be, I think, eventually a captain of the defense. He's going to be one of their better players in the box on defense. So yeah, he showed what he could be, and I think I raved about him in other episodes, and I'm going to continue to do so because I think he's going to give me a reason to.
Yeah, I think Malik Willis and Caleb Douglas were the highlight standouts for me in that. And just for Malik Willis, I really love this for him. Like, he's come in, I'm sure people had doubts in their minds about whether he was capable of doing this. And again, like, it's just preseason, whatever. But like, he looked competent. He looked strong. He looked like he was leading, that he was finding ways out. The run that he did was great. So I'm really excited about what he can do. I think that the starters looked fantastic. It was sadly, obviously, just the rest of it after that was not. That opening drive was stunning. Perfect. Loved it. If they could come out and do that every week, then I think that they've got a really good season ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many players here that it's like Chop Robinson. He was he's the highest rated defensive player on Pro Football Focus. He played 6 total snaps, but he had a hurry. He had he had 1 pressure. He did 4 pass rush, 2 run defense, and he was one of the highest rated. There's too many players, honestly, like to have to go through all.
It's a good thing, but considering how concerned we were.
But I'll say this: all that to say, the backups and the third stringers and all the depth was atrocious. This starts with the quarterbacks, which we'll just get into some breaking news that followed the poor performance of Quinn Ewers. He went 1 for 8 for 29 yards and 1 interception. That one pass was the route where Jalen Tolbert was completely unguarded and ran. And it was a run and catch, and it wasn't even so much Quinn Ewers throwing the ball. Again, you can make an excuse for it and say, oh, it's because the starters weren't out there. But regardless, the backups should be at least competent enough to be able to protect Malik Willis, to be able to do everything that the starter should be able to do. That was not the case. And even Cam Miller went out there and just was not great. 3 for 11, 39 yards and 2 interceptions. So again, you're looking at the overall performance collectively of everybody that stepped off the field, and it just wasn't anywhere near what it should be. And now Quinn Ewers is injured. He suffered a groin injury during the preseason game, and he also had some sort of underlying other issue that he's been dealing with since training camp or back in minicamp that will now keep him out week to week. So the Dolphins went out and signed Mark Gronowski, who was with the team previously. He just got waived early August, and now he's back with the team. To be honest, I highly expect that the Dolphins are going to be bringing in a veteran. I think they're going to be looking at other squads. I think look at the Steelers, look at someone like Joe Milton, look at those teams that have quality quarterbacks, those first, seconds, thirds. Obviously, like the backups are going to be hard to go and get, but you look at the third stringers from other teams. I think you have to make a move here, especially because like that. Well, even regardless, like Quinn Ewers is now hurt. You don't know how long he's going to be out for. You need somebody to be out there on the field, and Cam Miller ain't it, obviously. I mean, again, this is first preseason game. It's not time to panic by any means, but you still need a quarterback out there. So I fully expect that they're going to be making a move for a quarterback here in the coming days.
Yeah, I hope so, just for their sake, because like there is so much talent on that team that I don't know that has fully like come together and gelled just yet. But it would be such a shame if something were to happen to Malik Willis and then that's just it, you know, for the rest of the season because Miller or Ewers can't get it done. And Ewers physically might not be able to. We don't know. I know it said at least a week he would be out. I don't know what that means long term, whether he's going to kind of get better or whatever. But yeah, I mean, who's available? Jimmy Garoppolo's out there waiting for a job.
He is. Yeah,
I mean,
Garoppolo,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the backup scene, like obviously there's going to be a little bit of drop off there no matter what team it is.
Yeah.
In the backups, you don't want it to be a drastic drop off. You want it to be maybe just a tiny bit, or if they could maybe play up to the par of the starters, and that's great. But yeah, you don't want it to be that massive of a drop off, and it was clear and evident. It was like watching two different teams, really. And that's not something I'm sure Jeff Hafley was happy about. That's not something the Dolphins were happy about. But yeah, in terms of the quarterback, yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. Yeah, and then you have this injury with Quinn Ewers. That's not great. That's not encouraging at all. Yeah, I mean, they definitely need to make a move. There are some options out there. I think we talked about it in another pod. A list of quarterbacks who are out there. Yeah, like you guys mentioned, Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he's a seasoned veteran. Been a backup for the past 2 or 3 years in his career. Yeah, there definitely needs to be a move made because, yeah, yours didn't look like the player that he looked like at the end of the 2025, and Cam Miller looked just completely lost. Both of them did it really. They both looked lost. But like, I guess like the grain of like the good thing is that you do feel confident about Malik Willis. I mean, you want to take everything with a grain of salt because it is preseason, but rather that than be like, yeah, Malik Willis didn't look sharp either. That was not the case at all. So yeah, like take everything with a grain of salt. You don't want to like exaggerate as well, but at the same time, we're just basing it on what we saw on Friday. And in terms of the backups and in terms of quarterbacks, that was not pretty.
Yeah, and you know, some additional really crap news for the Dolphins is backup offensive lineman Jamaree Salyer is now out for the season. I did not see what he suffered, but he was placed on season-ending injured reserve. And this is a really huge hit for the Dolphins because he was offensive lineman number 6. He was the kind of lineman that could step in a guard and or tackle in case something happened. He was expected, or rather one player to look out for, to push for a starting role. Not that wouldn't happen because I think they have their starting 5 pretty much dead set, but he would have been the guy to step in a heavy rotational role and would have been the first guy up to step in if an injury occurs on the line to somebody else like Austin Jackson or whoever it may be. But now he's out for the season. So that's a really big loss for the Dolphins, and expect that again. I'll say this, August 30th is probably going to be a secondary draft. For most teams it is, because there's a ton of players who are going to get cut by their other teams because they need to get cut because everyone needs to trim down to 53 to a 53-man roster, and expect that the Dolphins are going to be heavily going after multiple positions. It isn't just going to be quarterback. I think offensive line they got to get in there. I think they got to get tight ends. I think they have to target quite a few players here, linebacker, and expect that that's what's going to happen. They're going to be going after quite a few positions because they need to rebuild that back end. As we saw, like you had just said, buddy, you want to see it. There's going to be a drop off, but it shouldn't be that drastic. It was like watching the team fall off of a cliff in terms of like how poorly they played against other, obviously, again, you're playing against other like third stringers, fourth stringers or whatever, but like they were just completely dominated. And again, this is preseason football. It's no time to panic, but you have to look at the overall health of the roster. And as we know, General Manager John Eric Sullivan and head coach Jeff Hafley do not rest on their laurels. They have brought in multiple players. They're going to continue to bring in multiple players. And I expect that we're going to see a huge kind of like overhaul, if you will, of those depth pieces for sure.
Yeah, that's really their biggest concern right now, is just like, because obviously it's different, you know, it's like switching from the starters to an entire team of, you know, secondary and back. So it's not going to be like that in the season. You know, if one lineman goes down or whatever, like, so there'll be about it's not the same kind of situation, but it is just worrying because those things happen week to week. Someone could be out for 4 weeks and then someone else could go out and it's just, it can pile up and it can really catch up on you. And that's just when your season just becomes miserable for you as players to have to go through that week after week, putting your bodies on the line for something that's not going anywhere. So yeah, and I can't think of a position that doesn't really need that right now, except maybe running back. That room seems pretty solid to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You don't want to enter the season with, I mean, there are some holes on this roster, but you don't want those holes to be like this massive gap, right? You want to trim that down as much as you can, and it's clear that the depth pieces right now aren't making it work. Like we clearly know that the issue is not coaching. We know it's not effort. It's just those players not playing to their standard, really, not playing like even backups, you could say, if that makes any sense. They just it just didn't look well right now, and if this continues to be the trend in the next 2 preseason games, then the only 11, 20, those 22 players starters on each side of the ball, those are the ones that are safe, really. After that, from those next 31 players, there's going to be a lot to think about, a lot to process, a lot to digest. And I mean, the good thing is that they do have time. You said the 30th, James. That's weeks.
I think 6 p.m. Eastern is when the deadline is to cut down to 53 completely. So, but again, that's going to be shopping day for all 32 teams. But I expect the Dolphins are going to be very, very active to rebuild the bottom of that roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, in some much, 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 much better news for the roster, for the Dolphins, for everything concerned, just broke this morning. The Dolphins officially announced that rookie wide receiver Chris Bell has been removed from the non-injury football list. This is huge. As we talked about in previous pods, he was already looking amazing just in like OTA minicamp area. He was already sprinting up and down the field. His speed looked good. He looked good. And then Jeff Hafley spoke and said it would be great if they were able to get him in a preseason game to get him ready for the regular season. But as we talked about previously as well, they're not going to rush him back. They were never going to rush him back. It was only if he was comfortable. It was only if they saw what they needed to see in order for him to get back on the field, period. Because again, you don't need to rush that kind of a player back from an ACL tear. You don't want to do that. As Jeff Hafley said, they don't want to set him up to suffer an injury that's going to cause a long-term issue for his career because he's a rookie player in the NFL. You don't want to do that. However, he can continue to look good. Now he looks even better. He was at practice today. He did individual work. He's probably not going to be doing teamwork until maybe the last week. Maybe we'll see him out during the 3rd preseason game. Could be, not sure yet. Just because he got removed from the NFI list does not mean that he's ready to go full speed yet. But obviously, they saw really good things with him, and this is the same kind of guy that has the same kind of skill set that Caleb Douglas does in terms of like that's what he looked like in college. He was a 1st round pick talent that dropped all the way to the 3rd because of the ACL tear, but he's 6'2", like 220 pounds. He's a big body receiver and could be that contested catch guy, similar to what Caleb Douglas has been thus far. Obviously, he hasn't been able to build that kind of chemistry with Malik Willis as much as Caleb Douglas has. But if he can come out and start to build that chemistry with Malik Willis in a significant way, the Dolphins could have a pretty powerful trio with those two and Malik Washington.
Yeah, I actually go to say that I think the wide receiver room looked positive, for all of our qualms about it. Like, I think that they actually look, and it seems like Malik Willis feels very comfortable with Malik Washington. That seems to be a real connection, and we've spoken about that. They've been training together and working together, so that makes total sense. And then obviously Caleb Douglas pulling off stuff like that, like that's absolutely going to be a guy that he wants to go to. So there's no reason to rush Chris Bell back into this fray just to have him, re-injure himself and re-aggravate whatever's going on. So, but I mean, I think that that's really exciting news because for me, like we were all worried about it, who's going to be wide receiver number 1, who's going to be wide receiver number 2. Like it seems like there's some good guys in there that have been building or doing the work with Malik Willis to kind of get that relationship down. So I think it's not something that people need to worry about. Again, preseason, whatever. Maybe it'll be different come week 1, but I thought they looked good this week.
I thought so too. I really couldn't agree more. Yeah, Caleb Douglas looked like a guy who could eventually be that player, that the players that's that wide receiver that's trusted on snap to snap, week to week. And then if Bell could come back, maybe to start the season now, that'll be a huge boost for them. Clearly, like the overall room still has some question marks, but if you could have potentially have a top two like Douglas and like Bell, granted they are rookies, but we've seen rookies all the time pop off, right, and do great. We're seeing one in the Ravens with Jacoby Lane, right? So I mean, if these two guys could continue to develop, if Chris Bell could be healthier and which it seems like he's stepping in the right direction. Anytime that you are on some sort of pup list or non-injury pup list and you get elevated to the next step, that's always encouraging. That's always a good sign, and this is no different here. Yeah, we have a little bit less than a month to the start of the football season. Could he be out there? Maybe it's possible. We don't know, but this is certainly a great sign for him, for the Dolphins, for the wide receiver room, and for Douglas, who could possibly get more help there.
Yeah. Again, we're judging it based on one game. It's the first week of preseason, but again, like we talked about previously, this is your first look at how healthy your roster is, and I don't mean healthy as in like their literal health. I mean that back end depth. Does it can it stand up? Because unfortunately in the NFL, injuries are commonplace, and you need to have guys that are there to step in. The Dolphins lost a huge one in Salyer. That's gonna really they're gonna need to go and get some backup offensive line depth, because as we saw, the depth pieces there, your 6, 7, 8s and beyond that, we're not cutting it. Quinn Ewers did not have the time to plant his feet and throw the ball. Jeff Hafley did say that, watching the tape, there was some errors with the wide receivers, this and that, which is understandable. But at the same time, you have to look at the overall unit, the offensive line. What are they doing? What can't they do? And judge it based on that. But again, I highly expect that the Dolphins are going to be doing some work, the back end of their roster, because they need it. They really, really need it. But overall, I mean, not bad. Not a bad first game under the Jeff Hafley era. Really important that I totally forgot to bring up, something that we've talked about multiple times over with Jeff Hafley, and why he's been already a well-respected coach, and why a lot of people are believing in the way that he's doing things. He pulled Ollie Gordon out of the game after he committed a really stupid post snap penalty that blew up a run. He pulled him out of the game, had a conversation with him, and he talked about that. I think it's very important that he did that, because this also goes back to training camp right now, and the joint practice is coming up. He said anybody who gets into a fight, you will not be playing. And so he's carrying over that important aspect of his coaching style into the regular season, or into the regular games, as he pulled Ollie Gordon. He's like, all right, well, you're gonna make such a silly mistake, you're gonna get sat down. And I think, again, that's important for this Dolphins team, because one of the biggest narratives that they've had surrounding them for the longest time in the Mike McDaniel years, even before that, is that they are a soft team. And I do mean that in the sense of they're an undisciplined team, if you will. All that stuff that broke last season with Tua Tagovailoa, and the people that were showing up late or skipping team meetings and all of that stuff, to say obviously, where's the discipline? What's going on? But now we're in a new era. That is in the past. We are here now. Jeff Hafley is about his business. And again, I think that sets an important standard. And he even said, if you're going to make silly mistakes, there has to be consequences. He's like, the standard is the standard. And if I don't enforce it, then it's a bunch of BS. And again, that's what he should be doing. It's okay, doesn't matter who you are, Ollie Gordon, Devon Achane, whoever it is, if you're going to play undisciplined football, you're not going to play.
And it creates a culture too, right? It's you're not just going to mess around here. You're coming up to show up, and you'll show out each week. And Ollie Gordon was doing great. And that must be frustrating for him to kind of have to go, sit down and miss out the rest of the game, or however many plays. So I think that that is gonna, because we've been speaking about what is this culture going to be that they've talking about building over the next year or whatever. It seems like that is it, you know, tough, responsible, disciplined, not messing up, no silly mistakes. And I think that eventually that will kind of go into each individual player, and it does, you know, make you take care of the ball just a little bit better and make you take care of whatever you're doing outside on the field. So I think that, you know, that's probably a good thing for them.
Yeah, I'm all for it, really. I mean, I think maybe like some people who don't understand on the outside looking in, well, it's a little silly. Like, no, it's about setting the culture. It's about setting a standard, and Jeff Hafley doesn't mess around, and that's the type of coach he is, and that's the type of standard he wants to set. You know, yeah, the best player is going to play, but if you're doing silly things like that, not saying that maybe like Ollie Gordon, you know, meant to do that or anything like that. He maybe just got a little bit ahead of, you know, kind of full of himself. But you know, that's it. You got to be smart before the play. You got to be smart during the play. You got to be smart after the play. It's just as simple as that. And you know, me personally, I'm a big fan of that. I love that because it just goes beyond that moment. It goes to the type of standard culture that Hafley is setting, and like I said before, so far I think it's working. But you're gonna have little things like this, right? But you know, sometimes you got to get, you know, I'm not punching in the mouth, but you got to, like, you know, be step to the side and kind of talk to sometimes, and that's how part of it.
And as the youngest team across the board, you know, age wise, that is also really important because that creates discipline for an entire career. You know, that's not just for now, that's going to carry with you throughout your career, whether you stay in Miami or go elsewhere. So I think that that's a really nice, well, it's a nice touch that he's adding into the culture here.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like he had said a couple weeks ago, it doesn't matter where you were drafted. If you're the right player, you're going to get playing time. You're going to be put out there, and you're going to see what you can do. In the same breath, if it doesn't matter who you are, what position you have, if you're a starter or a backup or whatever you are, if you make silly mistakes, you're going to face the consequences of that. And like you had just said, Billy, that is the culture. You know, the physicality, Jeff Hafley talked about that. The team was very physical. It's almost at the level I wanted to be at. But at the same time, he's also like, look, man, don't go and cause a big run or a big play to get wiped out because you wanted to go step over somebody or be silly or do whatever it was that you did. Don't do that, because then it is about discipline. It is about moving the chains. And if you wipe that away with a silly mistake, you're going to get sat down. And I love that. And keep doing that. You know, obviously, we'll see what happens in week 2. Again, the Dolphins are going to be probably bringing in a lot more players. They're going to be playing the Giants in week 2 on Saturday. And we will be back next week to talk all about that. Some Giants hate there from Billy for obvious reasons.
Giants hate? No, I'm excited to see Hardball's new era.
Well,
I
anyway,
actually am.
We will talk all about that next week. Again, people, please, if you like what you hear, share, like, subscribe, do all the things. It really, really helps us out. And yeah, we will be back next week.